All right, welcome everybody to the next episode of Yankee Chronicles on YouTube. I am Bobby Ryan, and you can find Yankee Chronicles on yankeechronicles.com and on Twitter at Yankee Chronicle. I am here today with Kenny and Chris, and we are going to be discussing with fan expectations and have fans put too much pressure on the younger players that have come up on the Yankees roster. And I think this is going to be an interesting discussion because a lot of people look at what a level of success should be at this point differently. So, Chris, being this is your first visit with us, we want to hear your thoughts on, are fans putting too much pressure on these younger players to succeed quickly?
Well, I had two thoughts on that when you told me what the topic was going to be today. My first thought was, no way. Maybe not fan expectations. I mean, I think that fans have high expectations of Yankee players. I think that they ought to have high expectations of Yankee players. So much so, I mean, the organization certainly has high expectations of winning. So I guess it depends if we're talking about a young player, depending on where they are in their development, how much that expectation is. You know, it's a different expectation for Jason Dominguez than it is for, say, Devi Garcia or now Clint Frazier.
Okay.
And you're talking about, you know, who's where in their development, what you should expect from that.
No, development definitely is a major factor in the expectations. Now, Kenny, what do you think about the expectations from the fans? Are we too hard on these players?
So, you know, like you said, I think it depends on the level of the player. How long has their tenure been, right? Or if they are a Garrett Cole type guy with that, you know, massive contract. He's already 30 years old. He's been in the game for a long time. Yeah, we're going to have high expectations, and having high expectations isn't a bad thing. I was a teacher for many years with I've taught the tots all the way up to graduate students, and having high expectations really is the thing that seals the deal for the kids, and they'll live up to it. But, you know, if you're talking about a young player like Devi Garcia, and, you know, these kids who are just coming out of, you know, the minor leagues or whatever, I think you have to adjust your expectations a little bit. I think they can still be high. You can have high expectations, but you can also adjust those expectations while still having high expectations for them. So, you know, you're not going to expect him to be a Garrett Cole pitcher, right? Type pitcher, but you know, you also, you also have a high expectations. He's going to perform pretty well. And I think one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is, is Aaron Boone having high enough expectations for the players? And is he communicating those high expectations to the players? Or is he like, oh, well, everybody makes mistakes, or they just have a bad outing, or they just, that kind of thing.
Does he come off too passive, or does he not want to break these players down and shatter their confidence while still being honest with the media? It's a very hard job for the manager to do that, because one wrong word will either make him look weak to the media or to the player's point of view, he doesn't think I'm good enough. To perform. But I think that's a fine line that a lot of people don't recognize as part of a challenge of a manager of such young talent. you know, we were lucky enough where we had a manager like Joe Torre, where as those players were coming up and we had that core four, Joe was one of those behind the scenes. He was kind of like that fatherly or grandfatherly type that was very open and honest and direct, but still didn't beat them down and really kind of gave a cold shoulder. You know, he never showed an expression to the media, whether he was happy or annoyed.
Right.
You know,
Right.
very matter of fact
Yeah.
facial expression.
Mhm.
You know, managers nowadays don't really give that. You know, they wear everything is out in the open. You know, because if you hide too
Exactly.
much, well, what are you hiding? Or if you give too
Exactly.
much, well, you're breaking the clubhouse code by telling them, telling the media, what's up on the up and up. So Boone's in a tough spot with these younger players, and one thing that led me to want to bring this question up in topic, and is the Yankees came, the core was rebuilt in 2017, where we had a lot of these younger players come up to the major league level and kind of shocked everybody. They shocked the baseball world of, right, the Yankees, where we thought they were in a rebuild year when they made those trades at the deadline, really were not far away from being playoff contenders. You know, they really transitioned very well, but we've never seen them get past that raise, raise the stakes for themselves in a playoff plateau. So, Chris, do you think that because of the way that they were successful in 2017, they gave false hope, or is it just baseball just wasn't ready for what the abilities that they had?
Well, it's complicated because, Girardi had the baby bombers when they first came up, and then he was criticized for his handling of Sanchez, as I think we know. I guess they thought they handled him too roughly. I'm not sure, but somehow Sanchez ended up giving the impression that he was then being coddled. He got people started calling him, and fans, say Gary's fat and lazy. And then he doesn't have very much success, and fans' expectations for Gary, that's just one example. And then with Boone coming in, the expectations for Gary have been just, can you get up off the basement floor and, bring it up. But so I think that the expectations from fans are one thing. Expectations from managers, of course, are another thing. Hopefully, the player is meeting the expectations that they hope to meet. For example, let me throw a question back at you.
Sure.
What Cashman recently made comments, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said that Gleyber Torres is a better second baseman than he is a shortstop, or he at least implicated that.
Yeah, no, that he did. He came out and he said, he goes, not that he can't play short,
right?
But at this point, his better position is second base.
Right. So now, what is the expectation, say, for Gleyber Torres, another young player, not as young as some of the other ones we were talking about, maybe, but
with Gleyber Torres, I would say his ceiling is still very high.
Yeah.
I don't think he's hit his peak. There's still. He came in the minor leagues. He was going through as a shortstop. And they moved him at second base, which looked more natural for him. He was able to, it complemented his range on the infield. The bat has never been, his offense has never been the issue.
Nope.
He can hit the ball, He could, hit to all parts of the, field plus power.
Right.
So he's a contact power hitter that the Yankees do tend to lean towards. I think personally, second base is where he should be playing. I just don't think, because they had to move him to second base because we had Didi Gregorius, they didn't fully develop him range-wise to handle shortstop, which is a very important position. Cammy, do you want to chime in on the on Glaber?
Yeah, I mean, I think that last point that you made is really important, because I think part of having high expectations for players is saying, even though there's maybe another guy who can do your job, we're going to expect you to do the same job as well, if not better, than that guy, than that other guy. And I think that that's a combination of management and coaches communicating that to the player, and the player has to believe that himself as well. So so I don't think that we can, whenever Glaber has a bum game or whatever, we can't, maybe 99% is fault, but that 1% is how are those expectations being communicated? Because here's the thing, these are still, some of these kids are still very young. Glaber's 24 today, I think I saw his birthday or yesterday. 24. So he's 4 years younger than Aaron Judge. So 24, I mean, that's, he's still a kid, even the kids are younger than that. And they're still at a point in their life where they're learning to manage their own self expectations along with expectations of others. And, I remember getting my first job in my 20s and learning, I was a teacher and I had expectations for myself, but my principal of the school also had expectations for me. And you have to learn how to manage all of those things. And, you're in your early 20s. It's a learning curve. It's a learning experience. Whereas I think if you look at the older players, like Garrett Cole is already 30, Tanaka's 32. You got Brett Gardner's probably going to retire one of these days, but he's like, 37 or something like that? I mean, these guys know now the game. They know the game that they have to play with themselves in their mind, and they know what the management and the coaches, they kind of can read what they're thinking too. But that's that's very much a learning curve in terms of expectations.
When you're discussing with the learning curve, we saw what happened with Clint Frazier. He had a terrible 2019, and then in 2020 he came in. You saw the work and the dedication he had to honing his talent, and was a much better defensive player this last year than he was in the past, because he had the chance to grow while playing the games out. And really learn with the feel of the live game. Now, with Frazier, it made me think of what could have been for Andujar, who all the Yankee fans were crying that he didn't get the Rookie of the Year. And before the next season even started, they wanted him gone, that he was useless. But they, like with a Frazier, was the pressure from the fans too much for management to let Andujar get the same chance to grow as Frazier did? Chris, your thoughts?
Andujar he's always been close to my heart. I mean, I wanted him to succeed in the worst way, and still want him to succeed, and I believe he will. But I don't know that he'll do that at third base with the Yankees. And I hate to say that, my opinion of him, I think my opinion of Gio Urshela and my opinion of Andujar were, like this.
Yeah.
As one went up, the other went down, because we had his deficiencies at third base. We couldn't have. I don't think that the Yankee infield could bear Andujar and Torres there on the left side of that infield. I mean,
that's a very fair point.
Yeah, and just having Urshela over there is such a comfort. And he may not be the Chapman or whatever that guy's name is, for the A's, that maybe is the top third baseman.
Yeah.
He may not be that, but he's definitely been solid over there. And Andujar lost his job to injury, really more than he did to Urshela.
But is that because, I know the injuries for Andujar were very unfortunate.
Yes.
And it really brought his development to a dead stop.
Yes. Yep.
So it is a hard player to gauge.
Yeah.
If he could have made the same progress as Clint Frazier.
Oh, that would have
But
been.
I think that still leaves to be a fair question of he's one of those players of what could have been.
Yeah.
Where the players had him elevated so high, where that his first error could have been in his 20th game, and they still would have been calling for his head.
Yeah.
Where no matter what they do, they're waiting for that ball, that one error, so the fans can say we were right.
Yeah.
Rather than just having the guys back and just really help. Fans could be those backup coaches, where if the fan base is really rallying behind a player, it really can be a huge motivation. I think sometimes fans are too quick to just say, you know what, they didn't do anything for the first half of their rookie season, move on. Cammy, do you think that's a fair statement?
I do. I think the fans are they're very in the moment. They're kind of like, 1 week, this person's great, and the next week, they're terrible. And I'm just like, but it's only been 1 week, you can't just, you got to get the guy more than 1 week. And so the fan base, I think, is really funny that way, because they I think, they don't kind of keep in mind all the time the learning curve that goes on. And when there's a learning curve, mistakes are going to be made. But also, I think in terms of Clint Frazier and why people were rallying behind him is because he was out there playing. They put him in the game. You cannot have high expectations for someone and then say, okay, no, you can't play. It doesn't work like that. If you're going to have high expectations, then you have to put the kid, the player out there, in the game, because those two go hand in hand. So you let them play the game, they do well, then you raise the expectations, you raise the bar for the next game, put them in the game. So, a lot of times the fans go nuts, but it's like, you hardly see a player in the game. They play like 2 games and, that's it. Like, you can't, you have to have, there has to be consistency.
Yeah.
And with Andujar, he did play a lot of games in the time, before he got injured. And so we did have that opportunity to kind of see whatever kind of development was going to take place, right? So, but Clint Frazier, we didn't know really until they put him in the game this year, And so I think that when they put him in the game, the fans were like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, what's this guy doing? Okay, let's raise the bar a little bit. And I think he probably responded to that somehow, or the management coaches did, and things kind of spiral from there.
Yeah. Well, There's one last player I want to bring up for this show, and this is a player that won Rookie of the Year, won the home run derby, had the second half slump in his rookie year, already has his own section in Yankee Stadium, and we all know who I'm getting ready to announce, and that's Aaron Judge. Here's a player who not only exceeded the expectations of the fans, but exceeded expectations when he came up in baseball. You had the commissioner, Rob Manfred, announcing that he's, got the ability he can carry the game. And not many players get those accolades from a commissioner. Has his injuries disappointed the fan base to the level that he can't recover from and stay his ground as the face of the team? Chris, your thoughts?
Well, that's a good question, but I think that with Judge, if you're right. I think he has, to this point, disappointed the expectations of fans who thought that he, by this time, would be the home run king. He would be what DJ LeMahieu was for the Yankees season, that it would be Judge carrying the team on his shoulders. But I felt that Judge's injuries were more misfortune than anything else. I mean, he's broken wrist, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Broken collarbone. I mean, it's not like he's out with, lower body injuries or something.
But, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But so I hope that Judge, that a little success in 2021 will make Judge king of the hill again. Because I'm always going to root for Judge like he is.
I believe Judge is that one player. We can look at the way that fans discuss Andujar and Torres, Sanchez, even Severino. Judge is the only player on this roster that has room for redemption. As long as he's doing well, all is right in the world. In the books, so it's really up to him. And like you said, it was unfortunate, injuries. He cracked it. He had the broken rib diving for a ball. Where if he didn't dive for it, the fans would be jumping on him that he was lazy, that he didn't want to try to make the play.
Yep.
These players, they never win. Never win, and it's our fault. I'm a Yankee fan. I put a lot of pressure. If we don't win the World Series, the year was wasted. We wasted 162 games.
I know it, but that's sort of the winning is the Yankee mantra, and Mr. Steinbrenner, George Steinbrenner, he's the one that said it. Winning is everything. So I mean, the Yankees have higher expectations, I think, than maybe other groups do, than other teams do for their young people, but then there's also high reward. If depending on what moves they make this winter, I mean, we could see the Yankees as a World Series team this year, and maybe Schmidt or Garcia finds their way onto that roster. That's just, I have that expectation, which is a high expectation.
So you pretty much justify the entire episode.
I'm sorry. I kind of think, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, because I kind of think if players are listening to what fans think too much, then they're probably in their own head too much.
Yeah.
And they just need to respond to what the organization says. Here's your expectation, or if it's even that clear.
Yep. Cammy, any final thoughts for you?
I just want to go back to Aaron Judge for a second, because this guy is highly unusual, not just in his physical prowess, but this is a kid, I believe his parents are teachers, or I think it's, at least his mom is. So I think he's probably raised with a set of very high expectations, but you know, I think maybe he pays attention to the fan base, maybe he doesn't, but this is a guy who has such high expectations for himself, for his teammates, for his managers, for his coaches, that when he bounces back from the injuries, I think we're going to see a real bounce back, because I think that this, his mentality, the way he thinks about things, the way he has leadership skills on the team, exhibits leadership. You know, he's an unusual kid. And I think if anybody could redeem themselves in terms of meeting fans' expectations, it's Aaron Judge. Anybody in baseball, that is, not just in the Yankees. But you know, but overall, I mean, the Yankees are an organization that they've always had high expectations. My great grandfather worked with Lou Gehrig in baseball before Lou Gehrig went to Columbia and then to the Yankees, and they kept in touch for Lou's time on the Yankees. And this was a guy with really high expectations. You know, he just until he couldn't do it anymore. But also, you know, he was, I think, also surrounded by players, and I think that kind of tradition has just continued in both the fan base and in the organization for a century now. And you know, so when they don't win the World Series, which we haven't for, you know, several years now, it's like, oh, this is terrible. So it's time to get back, but I think but I think a lot of that is going to depend on the expectations that are communicated by the coaches and the management this year. So we'll have to see. Cross our fingers.
Chris, you want any final thoughts?
Just that I think it's going to be the year of Aaron Judge. I've been saying that. 2021, the year of Aaron Judge.
All right. And Chris, I want to thank you again for joining us today. It was a pleasure having a discussion with you, and we hope to see you again with us soon. And again, on behalf of everybody at Yankee Chronicles, I am Bobby Ryan. I want everybody to stay safe and stay smart, and talk to you next time. Have a good night.